want to go into. I'm going to say something that's highly controversial right now, but it needs to be like aired out for real once and for all. Because when I discovered it back in 2020 May, once I opened up New Room Collective, I saw a whole bunch of talented people who are very smart advertisers and marketers and salespeople and business leaders and thought leaders. Like I saw all of these people, and they were missing the mark, and that was one of the reasons why that group got so much traction. And that's and what I'm going to say is very controversial. But it's true though. The stuff that we learned doesn't work. It doesn't work. And here's why. The way that this system is currently set up, we're all trained to become employees.
Mhm.
So as a result of us becoming trained to become employees, we're indoctrinated into a system for at least 12 years just to learn that one thing, which is how to run the machine. So in essence, we are the machine as human beings. And I see this every single day when like I was driving in LA the other day and I saw somebody who had like a Lexus symbol tattooed on their face. I'm like, I would never do that. And again, I don't have any problems with tattoos or anything else like that. But when you see how brands have infiltrated people's minds to the point now where they're practically advertising for free on their skin on it and they're not getting paid for it, you know, there's a separation of church and state at that point in time where you have to go, hey, I'm buying into this to the point where I'm putting a tattoo on it, but what is it really doing for me? Like how is it really like improving my life, if that makes sense? So Nathan, you brought it up the other day where, in an entrepreneurial game, people can feel schizophrenic like that. And it's a very real condition because and this is the reasons why, Bob, we started the executive entrepreneur as an example,
Mhm.
is because it's one thing to be an entrepreneur. It's another thing to be an executive entrepreneur. So what's the difference? An executive entrepreneur understands that they have to do certain functions all over the grid, like we talk about in our offline audience roadmap meetings, Bob.
Mhm.
So there's 7 specific areas that we have to know. That way you don't have this scattered mindset that you see everybody have. Because when I hear somebody say, hey, you're a jack of all trades, you're a master of none, I instantly think of that being an executive entrepreneur because they have the wherewithal to see the whole playing field, but they don't quite have the instruction manual, if that makes sense. Like they just don't quite know which way they should put their energy. One day they're doing this, the next day they're doing that. Then they're roller coastering up and down in their career because they finally get a client, but then they have to do fulfillment over here and they forget that. So like they're juggling all of these balls, and our current education system just doesn't teach how to handle that, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It makes perfect sense. And I don't mean to make this about me, but just I think it's a perfect example. When I was working at Lehman Brothers, and myself and my two best friends, we were all top salespeople. We were making a lot of money, but none of us believed in their model. It was to milk people for as much money as they possibly could. And I looked at my two friends and I said, let's start our own mortgage company. And they said, no, we can't do that. Like it was ingrained in their minds that they had to work for someone for the rest of their lives. And it took me 6 months to convince them for us to break out and go on our own and start our own agency where we treated people kindly. We got great referrals. We built out the company successfully. It's still going today, but it took 6 months of me having to break down those barriers because these guys just thought they were going to work for someone for the rest of their lives. They couldn't imagine being entrepreneurial. It was, it was a fight because it was just ingrained in them that they were just going to be W-2 wage earners for the rest of their lives. So I think
Yep.
what you said is absolutely correct. That's the way we're trained. We're trained to work for someone.
Yeah. And now again, let me be super clear about this. There's nothing wrong with working for somebody else, because
No.
what's happening is, in exchange for my skill set, in exchange for my knowledge base, in exchange for me actually putting in the time, energy, and effort to make their machine go, I'm getting compensated. Okay. So
100%.
well, I want to be super clear on that because I see a lot of gurus out here just wanting to like poo poo all over people's like livelihoods. There are some people out here who just want to pour coffee for a living, and that's okay. I know one of them, when I used to travel to Hawaii all the time, she actually remembered my name. She actually knew exactly what kind of coffee that I wanted, and it made me want to stay at that hotel even more.
Mhm.
So it was one of those things where, again, she was demonstrating that people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And she saw thousands of people every single month. Like she just knew, because I wasn't there every single month. I go over there like every other month, right? but she still knew who I was, and she still set up everything all the way down to my omelet. Like she just knew what I wanted. So, but if she wasn't an employee, then she would never have known to just stay in her lane and just play that one thing that she loved to do. She absolutely loved serving people. So I want to honor the people who are employees and get people to understand that, hey, you need to be able to do something to earn a living, to have a life. Not everybody wants to become an entrepreneur, and that's okay. You follow me? But the biggest thing that I wanted to point out here is that we have to just dump mainstream thinking, because
Yeah.
when we finally dump mainstream thinking and understand that if you have ambitions and if you have inspiration and to do things, then it requires a different level of thought. It requires a different way to move on this planet. It's just a whole bunch of different things that we have to just really understand, that that information is not necessarily hard to get, but it's just difficult to see because of all the noise. So this is the reasons why millionaires are always, oh, well, look at this person, look at that person. That's great. It's showing hope. That's fine. What about the specific roadmap that it takes to get there, though? You follow me? And that's the reasons why after 2020, it's what I know as the great transformation, is because Nathan's a demographic, as an example. I saw one girl on IG and she's just like, hey, before you think that I'm just this lazy Gen Z person, let me tell you, I put in my work, I went to school, I did my jobs, and it just doesn't work. She just was very matter of fact about it. And then as a result of that conversation, I think she was getting better offers because I think that one reel that she put out went viral. But my point is, she was expressing something that the whole generation at that level, and actually my level as well, Generation X, knows, feels, and experiences. So if we all know, feel, and experience this, then why are we still holding on to this construct that doesn't serve anybody except the machine itself? You follow
Mhm.
me? People want to vilify like people who are millionaires. I know plenty of millionaires. I know plenty of billionaires. They're the biggest giving people I know on the planet. We have to understand though that the rules and the laws are always, even down to the tax code, is not designed for an employee to win. It's designed for self-employed, business owners, consultants, like all of that. And this is per the tax code. It's not even Fred just guessing this stuff because I have my tax license. So what it really boils down what it really boils down to is that you have to know what side of the coin is on, like we talked about a few meetings back. You know what I'm saying? Like we have to understand that this is real. It's our life, and life plays for keeps. I don't know anybody who's gotten off this planet by themselves. You know what I'm saying? It's one of those things where it's just like, like I'm gonna die. So okay, well, how am I gonna live my life while I'm doing that? Like, how am I pursuing this game, if that makes sense? Is that making sense, or am I being crazy here?
No, spot on. Spot on.
Okay. Is Namisha still here? Because I was curious as to
Yeah.
if she had an
No, no,
opinion.
it makes sense. I'm listening. I'm listening
Okay.
intently.
Okay. Well, you miss motivation. I need to get your viewpoint.
No, I feel that it 100% makes sense. And I think that, the more that we can show, like you said, what is it, tractor beams instead of rabbit holes, like just show the path and show these opportunities. And if it's for them, it's for them. And if it's not, it's not.
Yeah, 100%. But they have to be able to see that there's a real legitimate valid choice in this game. And that's what we have to provide. We have to be that guiding light, that beacon for people who can't see it, because there's just so much noise out here. Anybody can just spend $5 or $10 a day to say that they're a guru and still take them down the wrong rabbit hole. They don't know what they're talking about. Next thing you know, this person is wasting life units. But that also leads me to the second point, though, is that despite all of that stuff, we have to be willing to observe. And the reasons why I say we have to be willing to observe is because there is so much noise in the marketplace. But if we don't know what we should be observing in the first place, we won't be able to see it. So, on the left brain technical side, if you've ever heard of this concept, it's called a reticular activator. So, so as an example, the reticular activator, it's like you go to buy a car, right?
Mhm.
You buy the car, and then next thing you know, you see that exact same car, and you're just like, wait, like, oh my god, they got one, they got one. That's how it works. So in order for us to be able to observe that, though, that's the reasons why we have to just think a certain way to say, hey, this is exactly what I want. This is exactly what I don't want. This is what we call an audience roadmap, that dual focus, because you have to be able to really grow while at the same time changing and transforming your life. You're going to have ups and downs and setbacks. That's just a part of the game, right? But for the most part, you have to live in your present self as well as working towards your future self. And everything in between are going to be those building blocks to help you get there in the first place. And this is the reasons why a lot of people fail, is because they're not thinking about two things at the exact same time. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. To all my ADD people watching out there you go. Here's your opportunity. Now you got, you know what I'm saying? Take all of that energy and just put it in between two people. Because at the end of the day, what you're working on doing is you're working on building your castle. And the only way that you can build your castle is by one block at a time. But if you don't have the foundation set, meaning that you don't know exactly what you should be observing and what you shouldn't be observing, right? This is as simple as you doing maybe like a Google search, or maybe going to Chat GPT to say, hey, I want to do this. What are the exact steps? You know, something small like that. But either way, you get some type of structure in your life. And it doesn't take a lot. It just takes a little bit. And then from there, you're able to just really look at your life and go, okay, I want to be right there. Oh, man. Now, don't get caught up in all the hype that some of these gurus do. Instead, look at like what your attributes and what your unique skill set is, because that's going to be your story to help you get there. And a lot of people don't realize that. But if you're not willing to observe in the first place, when you don't know what you don't know, you don't know. So you got to start knowing. Because again, you go from a knowing problem into a doing problem. Don't want to get too overly complicated with this, but the bottom line is you have to be willing to observe. You have to be willing to see what you want, what you don't want, looking at your past. As hard as that is for some people, we rather look at other people's past than look at our own, right? That's just the way it works. But once we're really able to see our past, we're going to be able to see like the tea leaves. We're going to be able to see the patterns in our life. Like Namisha, me and you talked about that before. Like you're a hustler. You're just a good spirit hearted person. Like, but, and then you started lifting weights and all of a sudden you just started becoming this beast. Like you were like, ah, like, because you're seeing the energy and you're seeing the results and you're getting the gains, and that's causing the rest of all the other parts of your real life to come up. But I'm not going to put the words in your mouth. You go ahead and give me some response if you want, if you think.
You're so funny. He's like, remember that one conversation we had that one time? Yeah.
Well, at least you know I listen to understand, not listen to respond.
Yeah.
You know? Hey, Bob, you want to chime in on that, brother?
No, I put in my 2 cents. I totally agree with you. And going back to that previous point, also to build on what you said, I agree with you 100%. There's nothing wrong with working for other people or anything like that. However, it's important that people know that they have a choice. And a lot of people don't even realize that they have a choice in this world. So that would be the only, final point that I would put on that. But no, this does make sense to me. And you do have to be able to observe what's going on, or else you're not going to know what direction to go in.
All right, cool. I'm glad you said it like that, because I want to put a number behind this so that we can really get perspective on how rare this conversation is. All right. How many people are on the planet?
8 billion, right?
8 billion people. So out of that 8 billion people, how many do you believe are employees?
The vast majority.
Like all of them.
90,
Most of them.
96%.
Yeah.
Right. So let's just take Bob's number, because again, I can't quantify it right now, but let's just say Bob's number is correct. Let's just say 96% of the people on this planet are employees, right? That means that the other 4% are really driving the narrative. Look at Instagram, look at Facebook, look at the ads that are being ran. That's not Fred. Hey, here's how you can get 5 clients in 5 days and make $5,000. Hey, won't you say no to your boss? Here's how you do it. Hey, da 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 da. Hey, look at this Ferrari. Hey, look at this lamp. Hey, look at da 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 da. Right? It's all of this noise in the marketplace. That's why the business opportunity market is endless. it's endless.
Yeah. Yeah.
I see the light coming on, Nathan. What's happening?
No, I mean, it is pretty crazy to really think about how rare the air is up here. It's like you live around here for so long that you kind of get used to it, and you kind of feel like, hey, this is just kind of what life is. But you don't realize that that's not what life is for a lot of people. And to Bob's point is, when people don't know, and actually you always said it, people can't hit what they can't see, and so they walk around not knowing that another world exists, right? I don't think it's that controversial what we were talking about before. Most people can kind of accept that. It's like, hey, that's been my life, that's my story. But when you don't know any other way, it's like, well, this is what it is. This is just how things are. We just live in the matrix. There's no red pill, but there is. And when people don't know about it, or worse, when they do know about it, but they don't trust it, it hurts people, really. It hurts people, like having that thought that there could be something better out there and then getting screwed over. You know what I mean? And so I think to your point, Fred, that's why we got to be more out in the marketplace, and that's why we have to really power through a whole lot of this stuff, because people do need that guiding light. They do need to know that there is a better tomorrow, but they have to see it, and they have to see all the results. They have to see all the genuineness, all the real conversations that we've had over the past, what, 8 months now, and so I 100% agree. And like you mentioned before, it's some crazy air up here. I mean,
Well,
just like in the
okay.
last 8 months, look where I'm at.
That's what I'm saying, Nathan. Let's pretend like this conversation is highly controversial. Like people, not from a negative standpoint, but from the standpoint of this is less than point zero zero zero
Yeah,
zero 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 one, right? And
yeah.
then we wonder why we're scared to share information like this.
Mm,
But this is
yeah.
how all the top players play.
Hmm.
Tell me I'm wrong. Bob, Namisha, you've seen it. Nathan, you've experienced it, right? So tell me this is not how the top players play. So why isn't it being talked about more? Why
Yeah.
isn't it like one of those things where it should be like common knowledge?
Mm,
Because
select
we
group.
can live with another 10 to 20% of people not being employees. We can live
yes.
with another 50% of the planet not being employees. I think that's totally doable, right?
Mm,
But why is that so controversial to say that?
yeah. It shouldn't be.
Is it when
And
when
But
just
you
to
it breaks
kind of
from, but it breaks
tag
from the
on what
norms.
sorry.
So anything that breaks from the norms is going to be controversial.
Hmm. And to tag on what Nathan said, when you have, people giving bad information, people become cynical and they think like, oh, I just wasted my money, or I got scammed, or that it doesn't work. And they don't see that those possibilities are there because it didn't work for them for whatever reason. They got scammed. They really did get scammed because they didn't get told the whole truth. So it is important to have genuine information that's correct being presented to the public. I think too many times we get caught on the hook because those hooks are good. Like,
Mhm.
oh, I want to do that. I want to make that. And they're skilled at those hooks. That's like part of their job. But they don't give you the rest of it really is like that clickbait system, right? And it's like, okay, you lured me in, but now you're not giving me the real deal. And so I feel frustrated and stuck. And then you go back down in those lower energy vibrations and you're right back where you started, where that serves nobody.
Or
yeah.
if I can also add on that, because I agree with your point, Namisha, 100%. But I would also add that a lot of those gurus out there who, put out the flashy ads of, oh, make $20,000 a month or make $50,000 a month or whatever. They don't talk about the sacrifice that's going to go into it. They make it sound like anyone can do it and that it's easy. And you know what? It's not easy making a dollar in this world. It's not, whether it's making $1 or making $1 million. And that's also a big differentiator, that they don't talk about the sacrifices that you have to put in and the hard work.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't just fall in your lap. They love to make it sound like it's just easy and success and money is just going to fall in your lap, when at least my experience is that it's not so. You have to
Mm-hmm.
you have to make the sacrifices and you have to be able to put in the work.
Well, that's what leads me to the third point. And I'm glad you said that, Bob, Namisha, and Nathan, because the reality of it is, regardless of all of that stuff, we still have to be willing to learn.
Yeah.
As tough as it sounds, let's look at the math involved. Let's just look at Bob's math, okay? If 96% of the people aren't actually knowledgeable like this, then that means the other 4% either know it completely and just don't share it. So they give half truths. They
Mm-hmm.
partially know it and they got lucky, or they completely fluked out and now they're trying to monetize their fluke before they go completely broke.
Sounds
That's what
about
I'm
right.
seeing.
Yeah.
Well, we've got the stats, Nathan. I think it's pretty accurate. What are your thoughts on that, sir?
No, I think that's spot on. I've seen it. I mean, I've grown up in in the generation of marketers and of advertisers and of, you know, the kind of that online world. And that's what I've seen. That's what everybody's seen. So I think that's it. And to Bob's point, I think it's also a manifestation of the fact that it's mindset. And because we all, I mean, that's probably the thing that we find most in common with all of us, is that we all went through the school system. And so whenever you have a world that's built upon that system that we just talked about, and then we try to go and do something that we haven't done before, we're still running things through that filter. So we're still running things through that same mindset. And so a lot of times it may be good information, but the indoctrination has still been there. It's still like deep rooted in us. And so breaking away from that really is it is harder than we think sometimes. It's still, you're going through the same habits in the same ways that we do something. I talk to some of my family all the time, and I'm like, yeah, that's not like the world's different now. It's not the same as it used to be. Like, I've seen a lot of this stuff, but it's hard to get there until you like can actually get your hands on it. You know what I mean? And you can feel it, you can taste it. It's what's a good word of saying it? It's like it's completely different than anything that people have experienced before, and it's kind of uncomfortable for people to experience it for the first time, I think.
That's a great word, that it's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
That is a great word. That's spot on.
Yeah. So that's one of the reasons why we designed Audience Roadmap the way that we did, though, Nathan, is because a lot of people have this 8-week program out there that really isn't going deep into the root core of the reasons why people aren't able to think a certain way.
Yep.
So when you're really able to understand the concepts of like the executive entrepreneur, you start getting that mindset down, right? That's like the operating system for us to be able to start talking about the dual focus and some of the other concepts that we go into it, because your energy can get so dispersed, to Demetria's point. Like, what happens is we start really wondering if we can actually break this matrix, so to speak. And I do want to set the record straight, Bob. It is simple to make $1. It's not necessarily easy, and here's why. The reasons why is because we've been taught to over-engineer our thinking. So when you look at some of the clients we've taken through Audience Roadmap as an example, they're very smart people, very genius people, but they're tripping over paper clips going 200 miles an hour because they're just going so fast, and certain parts of their foundation are broken. It's no different than when I work with a whole bunch of advertisers online who know how to advertise, but they don't know how to market. They're two completely different skill sets, for the record. You know, you have to market to build your foundation. Advertise just helps you find new audiences. You know, now people can challenge that, but that's what it is. That's what I've done my whole life. And that's the delineating factor, because you don't need to have paid traffic in order to advertise. That's the reasons why understanding the differences of these is so huge, because you don't need to have people. Anytime you think of advertising, you're thinking most people like, oh, they're buying eyeballs. That's not the true definition of advertising. So go back and take a look at that in the dictionary. Anybody can test that. But for the most part, we're over engineering the way that we're thinking, because money does operate on a lower vibration. And since a lot of the most smartest people who I know don't have visibility, the reasons why is because they're too smart to make money. Like when I was working in the automotive industry, specifically on the finance side, one of my regional managers, she tapped me on the shoulder because I was crushing it. And she was just like, yo, you really gotta dumb it down, bro. She was like, straight up, dumb it down. And then when I did, because I thought it was going to be insulting to people, and it's not. The way that, again, the 96%, using Bob's numbers, think is they're taught to just have these one or two functions, and that's what they get paid for. Okay. The higher level thinkers, the ones who have all of these concepts, the architects of the world, right? They're the ones who can not only see, but they're able to actually write out exactly where that outlet on that house should be, how many rooms, how wide, how deep, right? Do that. Ask the average employee to do that. It's going to be tough. Not impossible, but tough, because they're not taught and trained to think like that, because they've been indoctrinated into a system for at least 12 years in order to think like that. You know, I'm an artist. I got laughed at by being an artist. You know, people like, that was part of my DNA. Like, you know, I was told that I couldn't make money as an artist. I find it to be completely opposite. Look at the artists and entertainers today. They're the highest paid people on the planet.
Yeah.
Right. So they broke through the matrix. I mean, even if they're even if they're not like an independent record label, they're still making more money than the average person. Because again, if people making over $100,000 per the stats, then guess what? They're in that top 4% of the world's population, or 1%, or whatever that number is. So that means the rest of everybody else is under $100,000. It's just the math behind it. That's not Fred, that's the math. So part of what we do in Audience Roadmap is really break all of that down, and we show people how to create time so that they can understand the fundamentals of marketing and advertising, because they're not what people think that they are. They're not. How can you properly understand marketing and advertising if you're always pressed for time and if you don't have the right information out there, to Nimisha's point? How can you do it? And there's a couple more things involved, more specifically, like even when you do happen to get all of this time and you're understanding marketing and advertising, like Nimisha said, there's hooks out there. There are things out here that we may not have time to learn, but we still want to get that end result, which is getting $1. But why are we trying to get that $1? Like, these are the things that we have to break down. And that's the reasons why that 8-week program is so powerful. But if we're not willing to observe, and if we're so burnt out because we try to learn something and it didn't work, then guess what? We've actually suppressed ourselves. So the machine wins. The machine doesn't need to worry about us anymore because we're in our heads and we're out of the game.
Yeah. That's wild. It's true though. It's so true.
That's what happens. I mean, you don't need to necessarily worry about that, that crab syndrome where people are pulling the crab down, like one crab pulling each other out the barrel. Nah, I mean, it's automated now. You don't even have to think twice about it. That's what happens.
Yeah.
So we have to be able to really understand all of these mechanisms that are out here that are designed for us to fail. But how can we see them if we aren't introduced to them? And that's what I was telling Nimisha the other day. Like, we can't get mad at the car. It's just a car. But what we can do is grab the keys. Somebody's got the keys. Somebody's got that remote where I can pop open the door and hop up in there. I still have to learn how to drive it when I get my own machine, right? And that's what we're working to do as entrepreneurs. We see the machine, but we don't quite know how to explain the machine. We don't know that there are mechanisms that are holding us down that the machine has already created long before, the Industrial Revolution. That's actually when it really started, was the Industrial Revolution, right? And then from there, it's automated. It's been engineered. It's like, okay, it's been engineered. Okay, great. When I'm willing to accept the fact that it's been engineered, it's no differently than, like I was saying before, like when I was in the military, everything was structured. It's very well engineered to take that many millions of people per year through one process so that they can become a military person, if that makes sense. So we have all of these real world examples where even if you didn't believe a word I say, you can just really go out here and observe it for yourself, that we need to just accept and go, okay, cool. I see it. I understand it. I'm willing to change. I'm willing to make that change. I'm ready to observe. I'm ready to learn. All right, who's got it? Like that's really how we have to figure out what we want. We have to be able to see, and also because again, like you said, Nimisha, people out there are just so cynical these days to where they need to be able to see it for themselves. Okay, don't believe what a friend says. Go out here and look at that. Go like this. Go to the Facebook ads library. Like look at all of the. Go do your Google searches. Go to ChatGPT. Whatever you need to see. But get that energy out of your system. But more specifically, look for that mentorship of people who have actually done it before, and they've got the track record, they've got the receipts, because that's what's really going to matter. And then from there, are they willing to share the information? Because a lot of people aren't. And that's just the reality of it. And again, for whatever reason, don't know, don't care, ain't none of my business. All I want to be able to do is to just take names out of this equation and have everybody just look at what's hidden in plain sight, like what's right in front of their face. Because the reasons why it's hidden in plain sight is because we're too far in our heads and we're not in the game. That's it.
Tripping over paper clips.
Tripping over paper clips.
I had never heard that before. That's a new one for me.
Oh, I've heard it before. I know in these past 8 months with Audience Lab, I've heard it, experienced it, I've seen it. I'm like, I know what tripping over a paperclip looks like.
Yeah, man, that is such a foreign concept, because even when you look at the whole team, when I was saying that there, it's just like, what we got to understand is that, again, that's the way the human mind is designed. It's such a complex machine in itself. It loves complexity. But the beauty of life is sometimes just getting up out of bed and just you know, like getting that air up in your system, walking around in the mountain air, you know, hanging out, talking to people. Hey, how you doing? You know, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, be happy that you got out of bed and you're not in a hospital bed.
Yep.
Gratitude,
100%.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, so that's basically where we're at with it. I mean, in our next one, we're going to go over the beliefs and behaviors for actually building wealth, because these are the things where if we get that part right, then what happens is we're able to start really seeing the playing field. And Bob, this is the reasons why we engineered Audience Roadmap the way that we have, is because again, we have to take what I call that half-second step back so that we're able to really be able to start seeing the playing field for what it is. Like a lot of people who are really close to me know that before I start speaking, I do my best to take a half-second step back. I'm not perfect at it, but I learned that from being in the Marine Corps. You know, when I nearly when I was out there and out in the Persian Gulf and crazy stuff happened, and I might not be here today, but because I was able to really develop that skill of stepping back, I was able to really see what needed to happen next and navigate through that whole process. And that's where I really came up with that concept. But when we're able to see that, we understand that there are a few more steps before we get to wealth. But just like we talked about in this specific module, understanding what the reticular activator looks like in your life so that you're able to see your own path is going to be the key factor in order to make that happen for you. And again, wealth isn't going to happen overnight. Some people define wealth a different way. Some people define it monetarily. Some people define it by time. It's however you define wealth for you. So we have to take a lot of energy off of the way that word has been devalued, because it has been devalued. Because if you look at the 96% of people, how do they know what it even looks like if they've never even seen it before?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But they
You
still
know,
use
they're living
use the word.
vicarious. I'm sorry, go ahead, Nathan. What you about to say?
No, no, no. I was just saying they still use the word. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean they're living through somebody else's IG reel. You know, they're living
Yeah.
through somebody else's you know, belief system of that. It's like, no, don't believe what I say. Like, here's the dictionary definition of it. What does that mean to you? Like, that's how you start really engineering your own purpose and your own structure. And that's how businesses start resonating. That was my big secret when I was working with a lot of brands that were in the automotive industry. Like, they knew for a fact, like I was going to go see their competitor. I don't want you talking to him and blah 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 blah. I'm like, bro, like this is on my business card, dog. Like, I'm gonna keep it moving. Like, oh, don't be talking about my business. I'm like, I don't need to talk about your business.
Yeah.
You only selling 200 cars a month. The area is like 5 million people. You ain't even scratching the surface. That was the big secret. I'm just like, why y'all trying to come at me? Because I know what I'm doing. I'm trying to show you that you can sell the exact same brand to a whole different group of people and you're going to win even more. But you don't get it. I'm like, look at your database. Your database is already telling you who's coming in the doors.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, like, dog, like this ain't me. This is your stats. I'm just coming in here looking at it going, look at this, look at this, look at, like, who's that dude? He's got like 26 million followers. He's like,
Uh-huh.
yeah, I mean, that's what I was doing.
Yeah.
I'd fly in and go like this. No, it took me more time to fly around the country doing that for 15 years. I promise. That's what I'm telling you, Bob. I swear it is that simple. But because people overcomplicate things, they can't see the forest for the trees. So in our next workshop, we're going to go over stuff like that, because that's really how you're able to define wealth for you. Doesn't matter if somebody else is a marketer. So what? Doesn't matter if somebody's an advertiser. So what? Doesn't matter if somebody's a copywriter or another business. So what? The reality of it is, what's your lane? What's your role in this picture? Now everybody's going to be your client, and it makes more sense for you to to develop referral networks than to actually sit here and just go mine. That doesn't work for anybody. You go out of business faster than you ever thought possible. I've watched it. It's just a phenomenon that happens when you're not sharing. What do you want to say, Namisha? I see you. I see you, girl.
No, you just said referral networks, and I'm like, yes, that's so key. It's important to have people that are willing to work with you and that you can partner with. And you know, you don't have to be the expert in everything. You just bring whatever your genius is, and you network and you work with other people that are on that same, you know, mission or energetic field. Like, I don't want to work with people that are poo-poo, but with good people I want to work with, right? So I like that.
Well, yeah, and that makes getting that dollar, Bob, so easy, like we talked about yesterday. You know what I'm saying? Not everybody's going to be part of your network. Not everybody's going to be in that right season to actually work with you or buy or invest with you. And some people were just the wrong people to begin with. But if we aren't able to delineate and really see who we want and who we don't want based on where we're at and based on where they're at, like I had this other girl I talked to her the other day. She's like, "Hey, you want to check this out?" I'm like, nah. I'm like, I did that 12 years ago. I think you're cool and everything, but that's a rabbit hole for me. Like, there's no reason for me to go down there. Now, if you're interested in what I'm talking about, that's cool. If not, no worries either. Somehow, some way, maybe we'll stay connected, maybe we won't, but there's no real like correlation there. And I'm okay with that. We have to be willing to let people go who are in our immediate circle, because again, there's a lot of energy and effort, to your point, Namisha, where you have to just stay energetically focused as well.
Yeah.
People don't talk about the energetic focus that you need. It's a difference, because you have to be like a laser beam starting out first, and then you can go wide. So if you've never heard it before, you got to go. I was going to go into this next week, but we can talk about it now. Like, as an example, you want to go wide for wealth and you want to go deep for security. So going deep for security means actually getting into your niche first and figuring out exactly what you do and what you don't do, because as you're expanding out, so does your network and so do your opportunities. And that's how, Nathan, on that side, we develop those mutually beneficial partnerships. So there's a whole structure behind this that we can go into more detail. That cool?
Yeah. I'm already like, whoa, it's like I'm just running it over in my brain. Yeah, that's pretty powerful. Yeah. Going deep for security and going wide for wealth.
Yeah, 100%. And that formula's been around forever. So it's not that's just one of many that are out there. And why aren't people talking about this kind of stuff? I have no idea. But it's like, look, can you just imagine the power if everybody learned that one thing? Like, nobody
Yeah.
would go to a mixer and waste each other's time. Like, you would know exactly why you were in that mixer. Like, you would know exactly why you're talking to people online. Like, you know exactly why you're friending somebody on Facebook. Like, you know exactly why you be running an ad a certain way. You see how powerful that one concept is? We
Yeah.
can we
Yeah.
can unpack that. We can unpack that all day long, Bob. We can create a course just for that one thing, and maybe we should. But legitimately, that's the reasons why speed is power in my world, and the only way that you can get there is by really understanding what you want, what you don't want, and everybody else around you currently, and take inventory. So that's my challenge to everybody here. Take inventory of exactly who's in your life right now. Maybe they're past their season. Maybe you got some people you need to let in right now. Maybe some people are just there and you guys quite don't know how to communicate and connect and articulate. And that's the reasons why New Room Collective, that's why that's there. That's what it's about. So again, have people join the group because they need to understand, like, this is the kind of stuff that we go over in the group. They don't necessarily need to be like on these calls if they don't want to, but the reality of it is that's what this whole energy is all about, guys. It's about really putting it out there and just saying, hey, look, everybody's got its zone of genius. Everybody is smart. If you made $1 in your life, that means you have something to offer. And even if you don't, maybe there's something that you're doing that we can help shift. And that's it. Because everybody has a skill. Look, we won the lottery, like Nathan talked about on his post, as far as the impossibility of being on this planet. It is our duty to find people just like us and help them out. Period.
Yep. 100%. It's a responsibility. It's a duty.
Yes, with great power comes great responsibility. So really appreciate it, guys. We will chat soon. Much love. I'm out.